So we are back now, right? So let's continue about the bones. As I've told you that we will talk about the relation of the anatomy and the physiology. But first, we are going in the anatomy, and then we're going to cover the muscles, and with muscles we're going to cover the physiology. So right now, this is my skeleton. This is my bony, my little friend. So we're gonna characterize the body parts, the bones of the regions of the head and neck region, the upper limb, the thorax, the abdomen, the lower limb. So we're gonna characterize the rings. The first thing is that the human body consists of 206 bones. Wow, it's a very huge number. So how the bones are characterized in the region? For example, the human body is very similar. We have the mirror images of our mid sagittal plane. What does it mean? It means that if we have, for example, x number of bones in this region, we're gonna have the same number of bone in this region. If I'm gonna have, for example, the 30 bones in the lower limb region on the left side, and as well as on the right side. If I'm gonna have 30 bones in my lower limb of the right, I'm gonna have the same number, same amount of bones, similarly identical on the left side also. Left and right all are same. Also in Latin we call the sinistra and the dextra. The Latin stands for, these are the Latin words for left and right. Okay. So this is our head and neck region. This is our head and neck region. This is our upper limb region. This is our lower limb region. This is our thorax, and this is our abdomen. And this green region, this is our vertebral column. So let's characterize the bone first. It's a very I love to characterize the bones first. Okay, so with the skull right now. So our skull consists of 28 bones, and it is firmly divided. The 8 bones are firmly divided. We have the cranial bones and the facial bones. This is the characterization in the cranial bones. I can write in that, but it will cost a lot of time. So it's good to just verbally speak the things. So here, if you see on my head that the region, the cranial cavity. What does cranial cavity means? Where the brain box, where our brain is situated, where the brain is set down, right? So that is called the cranial cavity or the brain box. So we have the cranial bone, which forms the cranial cavity to house our brain, the CPU of human body, right? So we have our cranial bones, and their numbers are we have 8 number of cranial bones, and when we come onto the facial bones, we have the 14 facial bones. All the bones that you can see, these are the facial bones and these are the cranial bones. So let's characterize the skull bones first, right? So let's talk about the skull bones, right? So when we talk about the skull bones, here I'm drawing, we have the 8 cranial bones and 14 facial bones. And when we talk about the 8 cranial bones, what are these? We have 1 frontal bone. This is my frontal bone. We have 2 parietal bones. These are the there we have the parietal bones, which forms the roof of the cranial cavity. We have 2 temporal bones. These are our here we have the temporal bones, which form the lateral walls of the cranial cavity, and we have 1 occipital bone, right? We have 1 sphenoid bone and 1 ethmoid bone. And when you just sum total that, like this 2 and 2, this 4, this 5, this 6, 7, 8, so we have 8 number of cranial bones, right? And when it comes to the facial bones, right, the facial bones, okay, so we have 2 zygomatic bones. Here we have the zygomatic bone, we normally call it the cheekbone, right? We have 2 nasal bone. Here we have the nasal bone, where I can rest my these glasses. Here is the nasal bone, okay. 2 nasal bone. We have 2 lacrimal bones. Here we have the lacrimal bones. These are just forward with the ethmoid bone. I'm going to draw it, but first I will just tell the whole curriculum, right? So we have the 2 lacrimal bones. We have 2 number of maxilla bone. This is my maxilla bone. Here, this is our maxilla bone. This is my mandible, right? So this is maxilla, this is mandible. we have one mandible, right? We have a pair of palatine bone which forms the palate, right? Also, we have the nasal concha, right? So we have two nasal bone, which is it's called the inferior nasal conchae or conchae. So inferior nasal conchae, right? So these about the facial bones. So let's just count it. So we have a two, two, 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the eight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are the 12. This is 13, and the 14th number is okay. And the 14th number is our vomer bone. So where is the vomer bone? I'll tell you in the diagram where is the vomer bone, because these things are very complicated, right? So that's how we complete the 14 bone. Also, we have one bone, hyoid bone. So it is a hair hyoid bone, and it just do nothing. It is just a site for the origin and the insertion of the muscles. A lot of muscles we will be talking about later, right?